And welcome to your 2023 Ironman Arizona course preview. Back alongside Kona coach Wendy Mader, I'm Dave Erickson. Your swim course for Ironman Arizona takes place in Tempe Town Lake. This is basically a one loop course where the swim start is more or less a half mile or so left of transition. So you have a chance to walk to transition, and they enter the water in groups every so many seconds. It's not a mass start. And you need to be prepared for what could be a possibly chilly swim course. The water will be somewhat dark. You'll go under some bridges, but it's pretty straightforward. And then after the finish, you have to do a jog to transition. Now, I've done this course twice. Wendy has experience at Ironman Arizona. What's your approach to this lake swim, even though it's a man-made lake there in downtown Phoenix?
So I would describe this, and we have in a podcast, that it's a fair swim, meaning there's no upstream, there's no downstream, there's no ocean current like in the Gulf of Mexico for Ironman Florida. It's generally, in my experience, fairly calm. If it's a windy day, there could be a slight, chop hitting your face. And the years I've done it, it's been a mass swim start. So there's definitely more turbulence that I've experienced than what it's like now in that rolling start. It is dark. The shore is fairly close. So I think it's a course that you can sight fairly well with the shore on your right and the buoys to your left. And so in my mind, you feel safe. I think someone who's an inexperienced swimmer should feel safe because they're not in some huge, large body of water. And so definitely cold. Every year I've done it, it's been in the low 60s, and water acclimation is important. And we've shared some course content within the course of how to acclimate to cold water if possible. And they have an opportunity for you to get in the water like the day before. I highly recommend it. If not, then hopefully within your training plan, it is a fall season race. So hopefully you've had time over the summer to get in some cold water, open water swims.
And that's one downside. You should take advantage if you're not prepared or not familiar with the temperature and what it's like to swim in that lake. Is you don't get to do a warm-up swim race morning just because of how it's structured. Everyone's walking up along the shoreline, and they just get in and go. And with this swim start, it's a little bit of a 100-yard swim out to the first buoy, and then you go straight, and then you take a hard right, and then it's a long a mile and a half down the river to the first buoy. So mentally preparing yourself for the swim of the long slog of one long continuous straight line under some bridges. You'll end up going under 3 bridges before you make your first turn. And then once you make that turn, you come back, and then you do a little bit of a U-turn before you come back into shore to finish line. So buoys will be on your right the entire time until the very end. You make a left turn at the buoys to come into the finish, and then you have a nice little jog to the transition after your 2.4 miles of swimming. And from my experience, even in 2022, there were a lot of people complaining of hypothermia symptoms because the temperature was in the low 60s. Someone said 59 at one point. So you just being mentally prepared for breathing, trying to calm your heart down in that first, so many hundreds of yards, so your body can be acclimated, because that face, once it splashes into 60-degree water, it can be hard to catch your breath. And you will be swimming into the sun on the initial, mile and a half or 2 miles, a mile and a half of swimming, because of the sun rising on the east, and you are going to be swimming east after that first couple hundred yards.
Yeah, that's a good point. The sun can be an issue.
So
sight
tinted
frequently. Tinted goggles and sight frequently. Again, within the course, we share plenty of videos that I talk about sighting. And I just can't stress enough how important it is to sight frequently, especially if you're in a area where the sun's going to be limiting your sighting the buoys in the course.
Your 2023 Ironman Arizona bike course, 3 loops to complete the 112 miles bikes. It is a relatively flat 3-loop course that heads out of Tempe and zigzags out into the Beeline Highway, which gradually climbs approximately 10 miles through the Salt River Indian community to the turnaround just before Shea Boulevard. Athletes then return to Tempe Beach Park to start their second and third laps. From my experience, even most recently, so I can speak with some recency bias, the roads are not as flat, meaning the the road surfaces aren't as flat as they appear to be. There was a lot of debris that was bounced out of cages, whether it was nutrition and hydration. So think about that or be aware of that when you're going out there to keep everything secure and hold on to your handlebars. If you are in the air position, it can be, a washboard like feeling in some sections. And there's that gradual climb. Wind can be hit and miss. Some people call this a PR course, like a Florida course might be. It can be a PR course, but if you have headwinds going out, that can be mentally draining. But do know that you will have tailwinds coming back. How do you navigate a 3-loop bike course?
So again, I like the number 3. It's a lot shorter than 112. So I like to break a course up into 3 loops rather than thinking about the 112 miles. The first time I did this race, it was in April. It was the windiest course I've ever done in my life. And you had already mentioned Beeline Highway. When you go up Beeline Highway, you're climbing, and then you should have a descent, a fast descent. And the year I did it, we had a tailwind up the climb, and the climb was so minimal, I didn't feel it much, but we had a tailwind, and as soon as we turned around, we had this horrific headwind, and every loop the wind picked up. And so it was quite scary. I felt like I was going to get knocked around my bike. I was swerving due to the wind. And it's an aero bike course. So if you're questioning whether you should ride a road bike or a triathlon style aero bike, definitely you want to get a good aero bike, and you want to train a lot in the aero position because that's where you're going to be spending most of your time on the nature of this course with the elevation.
And because of the 3 loops and knowing that it's about 18, 19 miles per loop, per going out and then coming back,
Uh-huh.
it's really easy to gauge your pacing, your fitness, where you are,
Mhm.
and to understand the pacing of not going out too hard, not getting too excited, like, oh, this is easy. Of course, the
Mhm.
first one's going to be easy. That first turn coming back will be easy. I recall that I was averaging 17, I think, for me, and my cycling is my strength. So, but I was averaging 17 on the way out, which was frustrating because I was expecting to be 19ish,
Uh-huh.
and then I picked it up on the way back. No, I'm sorry, I averaged 14 because of the wind, and coming back, I ended up averaging 17 for my first lap. That's what it was. So 14 going out, and I was really frustrated with that because it was a headwind, but the tailwind was so strong and coming back down that I was able to get back into the 17 miles per hour range after the first loop. But knowing your first loop's numbers can help you pace yourself for the next few loops. But taking that first loop definitely is something you want to be more cautious about because you
Yeah.
still, even after the bike, you've got a marathon to run.
Right. So a looped course, you can kind of take the first loop, get a feel of what to expect as far as wind conditions and climbing that beeline highway if you don't understand what it's like beforehand. And then, kind of push the second loop a little bit and then try to hold on for the third loop. And it also depends on if you're going to be having a power meter on your bike or if you're just going to ride by effort or heart rate or pace. And so it's labeled, I think most people would label Ironman Arizona as a very fast a beginner friendly first time course, but at the same time, the challenge of the wind can slow you down and make it very difficult. And so it
Mhm.
could be a very difficult, hard course if the wind plays a factor. Weather wise, since they moved the race from April to November, it's been more on the cooler side. I think it's a temperature friendly course where it's going to be in the 60s, low 70s most of the day, maybe 50s in the beginning.
Yeah, the mornings may seem a little intimidating, that it'll be kind of chilly, but it warms up quickly.
Hmm.
And then I was surprised that it wasn't as chilly in the evening as I was expecting it was going to be once the sun went down. And it seems like, unless you're really high elite, that you will be finishing in the dark. Sun's going to be setting by the time you come into the finish, most likely, not to minimize your abilities or not, but most likely it'll be dark when you come back. So your 2023 Ironman run course for Arizona is 2 loops, pretty straightforward, fun. I want to say easy just because it's straightforward. There's no real hard. There's one kind of climb on the back end of the first loop, but other than that, you're 2 miles out, 2 miles back to transition, so you see a lot of people. The first 2 miles are, I mean, the first out and back is great for spectators, and then making your way across the river, across a bridge, and then making the out and back. It's a real straightforward, fun, spectator-friendly run course. And 2 laps again makes it easy to break up and pace yourself, and you get to see the views are fine as well. There's nothing that says, "Oh, this is boring." There's always something to see.
No, yeah, the year I've gone down to spectate, I've done that a few times. I'm someone, because I'm an active athlete, I'm running around all over the course to see different athletes. So one athlete may be at mile 18, the other athlete may be at mile 5, and that may be at the same point. So
Yeah.
it's always cool to be able to go to Ironman and follow someone online on the app, and then you know where they are, and then you can either bike there or walk or jog to the point of the athlete you're trying to see on course. So definitely the spectator friendly is one of the best on this type of courses. And if you are someone that's going to be finished after sunset, the race does take place in November, so sunset is going to start earlier than other venues at different times of year. You might want to put a headlamp or some sort of lighting device in your special needs bag so you can pick that up and carry it with you. And so you're not out there in the dark alone.
Yeah, I didn't find that the dark was an issue, but if you have a special needs bag, you want to throw in maybe a long sleeve shirt, that could be helpful to keep you warm in some of those sections. And they had broth, they had chicken broth out there. They had plenty of warm things that you could do to keep yourself going. And I don't know, I just found that it was just a fun course to do with the energy that the spectators would give you.
Yeah.
It's like I almost like, please don't cheer so much because now I have to run faster coming in through the transition areas. Like, I wanted this to be a time where I can kind of slow down and pace myself, but you guys are making me run faster because I'm so excited that you're excited.
Hmm.
So fans give you an extra boost no matter what, and they're all over the course.
Yeah.
This is a good one to go to. This is a destination race and usually sells out pretty quickly. Arizona is definitely on a bucket list, I would say.